In the small town of Spinea, Italy, just outside of Venice, the Girardi family has been building premium commercial-grade bar and coffee equipment since 1952. Always innovating, Ceado's recent focus is a concept they refer to as designing flavor. But what does that mean? Well, let's find out. Hey, coffee lovers, Mark here from Whole Latte Love with Ceado's all-new, all-purpose single doser, the E6C Chameleon. But before we get into it, if you want to make sure you don't miss out on videos like this in the future, hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell. That way, you'll always be the first to know when we drop something new. The Chameleon is a remarkable all-purpose grinder with specialty OGX 64mm Opalglide Burrs that deliver a flavorful expression of coffee regardless of brewing method. The X-Burr design was pioneered in their LifeX grinder, which was recently certified to Gold Cup standards by the SCA. The Chameleon uses a powerful and finely tuned 460-watt motor. It's what you're going to find in their larger 83mm E37S grinder. It has essentially zero retention, easy cleaning, and simple smooth adjustment with access to the full grind range with a single rotation of the stepless adjustment collar. Ceado's patented Steady Lock system eliminates grind size drift due to thermal expansion, and a 3-year warranty backs it up. Now compare that to the 1-year warranty offered by many manufacturers. Coming up, we've got blind taste tests with special guest and World Barista Championship judge Danilo Lodi. He'll give us his opinions on flavor for matched espresso extractions and pour-over brews, comparing the Chameleon to two other all-purpose single dosers, Varia's VS6 and Eureka's Oro Mignon Single Dose Pro. For those, we'll be using single origin washed coffees from Guatemala and Colombia. So on top of that, detailed results from our expanded battery of performance testing. When we're done here, you're going to know what sets this grinder apart, and you'll be able to confidently decide if it's the right addition to your espresso and coffee setup. The Chameleon here, yeah, it's a really simple grinder. Weigh your beans, mix with RDT to reduce static and improve extractions. Load your beans in the top, press the grind button, and fluffy, clump-free grounds are sent to your dosing cup or portafilter. At the end of grinding, operate the bellows to clear for essentially zero retention. Now, the basics on this beast of a lizard, it weighs in at a bit over 21 pounds. The housing is all aluminum. It's a little over 15 inches high, 15 deep, and 7¼ inches wide. Grind size adjustment is stepless, and the burrs spin at 1700 RPM. Inside the Chameleon, those OGX 64mm Opalglide Burrs, yeah, they'd be a $200+ upgrade from stock burrs in any other grinder. We've got an all-purpose cutting geometry that delivers the fines you need for a sweeter espresso extraction with increased body while reducing fines at filter sizes for flavorful cups with more clarity. The slick Opalglide coating is specifically designed to work with the RDT method. It helps reduce retention, helps with grinding speed, keeps coffee oils from sticking, and protects from moisture. The Chameleon sits at a 70-degree angle for near zero retention, and you can remove the ground chute for a quick clean out with the included brush. Making grind size adjustments, it's easy. A single rotation of the smooth turn collar with a nice rubber grip here gives you access to the full range of grind sizes, which means the numbers on the removable indicator here, they actually mean something. So if your favorite coffee for a pour over dials in at a 5.5, it's going to do that every time. This is a really handy feature if you regularly brew different styles of coffee. Switching back and forth between espresso and pour over won't take multiple rotations of the dial or many guesswork trying to figure out exactly where you should set your grind. In fact, I've got a colorful little trick over here you can use to make it even easier. If you use a variety of beans and brew methods, try something like a chalk marker to color code them in vials and make corresponding marks on the indicator dial. It kind of goes along with the whole Chameleon thing. And it's straight from the box setup. Median particle size ranges from around 211 to just over 1300 microns. So you're good to go with a range from finer than espresso to a coarseness out beyond cold brew. These screws under the grind indicator dial here allow you to make adjustments to the grind range so you can zero out your grinder as needed. Now that's a feature Ceado included for Chameleons used in high volume commercial environments. I do like the grind indicator dial. It's adjustable. You can remove and orient it so any number can be anywhere. So for instance, you can set your espresso grind size right at 2, so you don't need to remember decimals or anything like that. An O-ring under the dial mount secures its position so it stays put. On so many grinders, the dial is not adjustable. Numbers are just there for reference. Here you can set it as you need. You know, on a lot of single dosers, accessing the grinding chamber requires removing a threaded grind size adjustment collar. That means you end up losing your grind setting. On the Chameleon, remove 3 beefy screws and the whole top burr plate assembly comes off as a single unit. You don't lose your grind setting and there's zero chance of cross-threading when you put things back together. While we're inside, notice the wide open path out of the grinder. This unrestricted path means once ground, coffee's going to exit quickly. Grinders with screens or other restrictions to reduce static and break up clumps keep coffee in the chamber longer, subjecting them to regrinding, which is detrimental to flavor. The unrestricted exit path, along with the OGX burrs, steady lock system, and zero retention, are key features in Ceado's goal of designing a grinder that enhances flavor. The finely tuned heavyweight 460 watt motor driving the 64 millimeter burrs in the Chameleon is a beast. You know, I've worked with many 64 millimeter grinders, and this one, coming in at a little over 20 pounds, is one of the heaviest I've used. Again, it's essentially the same motor used in many of their 83 millimeter burr grinders. And check out its inertia. A lot of kinetic energy in that weight. When I run the grinder and cut the power, it keeps spinning for more than 10 seconds. More about that in the testing section, but go ahead and try that with other grinders. I'm willing to bet you're not going to get that long of a coast time. It's a powerful, heavy, and finely balanced motor. It's rated at 4 amps, but puts out more when needed, ranging up to 4.6 amps in our test. That extra juice keeps the RPMs up to power through denser, light roast specialty coffees. Now, if you're familiar with our videos, you know we typically include results of our in-house testing. For 2025, we're going deeper with more detail and standardized test protocols across similar products. Here's a list of potential test results we'll be providing. Now, not all of these will be available for every product, and there will be some variations. For instance, the E6C Chameleon is a multi-purpose grinder, so we do particle size distribution analysis and other tests at both espresso and filter grind sizes. Since the Chameleon is a single doser, some tests are preferred both with and without RDT. The first step in our grinder testing is basic information, you know, time, date, serial number, ambient temp, humidity, power supply watts, test coffee use, that sort of stuff. From there, we establish a baseline using a grind size particle analyzer to arrive at a median particle size that's generally accepted as appropriate for a given brew method. Our standard is 250 microns for espresso and 800 for filter brewing, plus or minus 10%. With this baseline, we can make meaningful comparisons between different grinders. Now, some of this data, you know, it's maybe well beyond what many buyers are looking for. Maybe you just want a well-built product that's reliable, easy to use, and helps put good flavor in your cup. But for us and many others, that data is going to help us get to know the products, find their strengths, so we can make more helpful recommendations for particular users or use cases. So let's get into the results for the Chameleon. Here's the basic information: that serial number, date, time, ambient temp, and humidity during testing, the test coffee used, and the roast state. I dialed into a median particle size of 245 microns, which is within our plus or minus 10% of 250 spec. You know, much like dialing it for espresso, it's going to take a few attempts using a Lightel CM200 analyzer. Each sample is tested 5 times, and the final reading is the average of the 5 test results. And here's a graph of those results. The grind setting for this size was 1.6 as the grinder was set up out of the box with the indicator dial zeroed at the finest setting. The particle distribution here shows the highest percentage below 200 microns and a relatively linear decline as particle size increases. For comparison, 2 days prior, under similar ambient conditions with the same coffee, I tested our reference grinder, the Ceado E37S, which uses larger 83 millimeter burrs. It had about 5% less particles in the sub 200 class. Now, those X-Series Opalglide Burrs in the Chameleon are a more recent design with a different geometry than the stock flats in the E37S. With more fines, it's likely the Chameleon will produce a sweeter flavor with more body and a higher extraction yield. We'll see how that pans out in the taste test coming up. It's also the type of grind that is likely to benefit from some pre-infusion to prevent fines migration and get those fine solubles into your cup. For dosing accuracy, we tested at espresso size with and without RDT and at filter size with RDT. We repeated each test 10 times, weighing coffee in and coffee out, getting the difference for each and calculating the average difference. For each series of 10 tests, we thoroughly cleaned the internals of the grinder. Note the first cycle for each espresso test had the most retention, especially high in the first espresso test without RDT. But after that, the average difference with or without RDT was 0.13 grams. At filter sizes, there was virtually no retention, with an average variation of a little under 0.03 of a gram. For the first espresso dose without RDT, the bulk of the missing coffee was within the removable ground chute, so it's easily accessible. The difference on the first espresso test with RDT was much lower at a little over 0.3 of a gram for the 18-gram dose and averaged out to 0.13 for all 10 tests using RDT. Look, you get an RDT sprayer with this grinder and you should definitely use it. Here's a graph of particle size distribution at filter sizes. The median particle size was 795 microns. Fines were very low in our testing, and the majority, that's 41% of particles, were in the 600 to 850 size range. This is a particle distribution that produces a cup with more clarity, with a high peak in the median particle size range and very low fines percentages. To measure stuck retention, we opened up the grinding chamber after the test and carefully cleaned out and weighed any coffee there, including the screw heads, burrs, and the grind chamber. Really, no coffee on the Opalglide burrs, and total stuck retention was excellent at just under 0.2 of a gram. To measure the precision of grind size adjustment, we took the median particle size at the espresso setting of 1.6 on the dial, then moved 10 marks coarser to 2.6 and measured median particle size. We then moved to our filter setting of 5.1 and divided the steps to calculate how much the median particle size changed for each marking. The move from 1.6 to 2.6 worked out to a change of 11.8 microns for each hash on the dial. As you adjust out to filter sizes, the size change is not linear, which is to be expected. Doing the math, going from 1.6 to a 5.1 setting gave a median particle size change of 16.2 microns per hash. So it's going to be easy to make precise adjustments with moves of a little over 10 microns in the espresso range. Here are the results of our other testing. Grinding speed came in at about 2.7 grams per second for espresso and 4 at filter sizes. Sound level measured at average ear height from an operational distance was 81.2 average and 83.1 peak dBA, with the bellows uncovered, and dropped to 76.8 average, 79.3 peak when covered with a hand as if you were operating the bellows. Power use when on an idle was 0 watts. It was 378 watts with the motor running with no load and 527 watts when grinding at espresso size. Now, the sticker on the grinder lists powered 4 amps, which is 460 watts at a supply of 115 volts. But as we found, the Chameleon can draw more power when under load to maintain its rated RPMs. I also took a look at coasting of the motor, talked a little bit about that earlier. That is how long the motor continues to spin after cutting the power. It was more than 10 seconds for the E6C. That's really long compared to some other grinders I've looked at, especially some of those not made in Europe. In general, longer coast times indicate heavier rotors, better bearings, and less friction in the design. In most cases, longer coast times, they're a clear indication of a higher quality motor made with tighter tolerances. For our blind taste test, World Barista Championship judge Danilo Lodi will give his expert opinion on flavor from the Chameleon compared to two other all-purpose single dosers, the Varia VS6 over here and Eureka's Oro Mignon Single Dose Pro. My colleague John expertly dialed in matching extractions of espresso using our washed single origin Guatemala Huehue Tenango. Shots were pulled simultaneously on a 3-group Dalla Corte Zero at 202 Fahrenheit using a 20-gram dose and extracted to a 1:2 ratio with extraction times within 2 seconds for all the shots. For the pour-overs, we used our Colombia Tolima. It's also a washed single origin coffee. Now, John first dialed in the grinders using Clevers with a 20-gram dose with 300 grams of water. Soak time was 1 minute, then draw down to 2.5 minutes, plus or minus 15 seconds. Once dialed in, the coffee was brewed simultaneously on Varia Flow drippers. So here's Danilo with his blind taste test opinions, which are among the most respected in the world of high-end specialty coffee for the 3 grinders.
Danilo, shot number 1.
Okay. Okay. The acidity is a little bit more pronounced. Has a good body, but a thin texture, more delicate, I would say, in flavor-wise. Good sweetness, though.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Shot number 2.
Okay.
For you.
Oh, this is definitely has more flavor to it. Like in general, brings more complexity to the cup. A heavier body. The acidity is a little bit too high, but the overall experience is balanced. But definitely thicker than the previous.
Oh, good. Okay. Shot number 3.
I would say that this one is the sweetness, acidity, and bitterness is more balanced, but is the one that bitterness take a little bit over in the end, and the body is just like a kind of like a medium weight body, not as expressive as the second shot, and not as high acidity and sweet as the first shot, but it is a profile that I would like more for a milk beverage because it like very strong flavors that will cut through milk.
This might be fun. Do you have a guess as to which grinder might be?
No idea.
No idea.
I have no
Okay.
idea.
Awesome. So I'm going to make it easy for you.
Okay.
It was in the order that I gave them to you. It's the exact order that they are lined up behind the counter here.
Okay, so we have the first one is the
Chameleon
Chameleon
E6C.
Ceado.
Yeah, the Ceado.
Okay.
Yep.
The second is the Varia.
VS6. Yep.
Yeah, very, very nice. I was not expecting a beverage, espresso beverage base so good from this one. And
then we have the Eureka Oro Single Dose Pro. Eureka Oro Mignon Single Dose Pro.
nice.
Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
So 3 massively different.
Oh yeah, it's like I'm drinking 3 different coffees. That's pretty cool.
All right, Danilo, we've got a similar thing going, but we did pour-overs this time, but we used the same grinders. So here we go. Let's start over here.
Okay.
Now this is all you today. You're doing the drinking. I'm doing the watching you drink.
Okay.
There you go, number 1.
Okay, I like very balanced and round. This one, I would say that very light body, but pleasant, kind of like silky body. Let me see the second one. This one definitely more body, heavier texture, not as sweet as the first one, but it has some like, it's kind of like maybe tuned down like to, everything's kind of like medium sweetness, medium bitterness, medium acidity.
Oh, sounds like a balance across the board.
Balance across the board, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
This tastes the heaviest of the three of them. Less sweetness, more like kind of like a balance between acidity and bitterness with a kind of like a creamy body.
Interesting.
Right? So way heavier than the other two. I always like to come back, especially when it cools down a little bit.
Right.
So yeah, definitely this one is the more delicate cup, like a silky body, like a delicate acidity, a good sweetness, almost no bitterness, but a very like short aftertaste.
Just slides right down the...
Yeah. Yeah, this one, it's kind of like that medium that I was talking about, with also a medium body, a little bit heavier, still on the silky side, but heavier than the previous one. I would say like this, like a medium body, and this is like a medium low body. Yeah, and that's the one definitely the heaviest, the one that has more like tactile, that you can like feel it, like almost like syrupy.
Is it almost like a
and
chewy?
Creamy, yeah, chewy, exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
With not a very pronounced sweetness, but like more of like kind of like cocoa bitterness and a little bit of the kind of like acidity working together, but definitely like the medium high body, this one. So like it's amazing how much they change like tactile wise.
Right.
Like it's very, very different, those three coffees.
Well, here's another easy one. I did them in the exact same order that we've got them on the back counter here.
Oh, really? So like the
Yes.
same way that we did it, the espresso, you just
bet.
repeat it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the Ceado.
That's right. Yep.
Nice. Yeah, like clean cup, like the same result that we had in espresso translated to filter. This one, again, the same thing, like kind of like similar characteristics as the espresso. And again, this one like the heaviest body, like the one that has more like texture to it.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I mean, I really appreciate that the espresso and the filter coffees are kind of coming across the same way with the same grinders. You know, you've got a much cleaner cup, and it was a much cleaner espresso with the Ceado. A lot of balance, everything kind of right down the middle with the Varia VS6.
Yeah.
And then big heaviness with the Single Dose Pro.
So a really big thanks to John for prepping and Danilo for doing the blind tasting. In general, Danilo's impressions pretty much match Ceado's claims of typically sweeter espresso and pour-over cups with increased clarity. Of course, a different coffee variety may produce different results, but the general flavor trends matched expectations. The E6C Chameleon now comes with an RDT sprayer. It's got a bean shaker dosing cup. Use that for your RDT. Ground coffee container, cleaning brush, and a grounds catch tray. For single dosing, it's standard practice to weigh your coffee beans before dosing, so you're going to want to scale. We like options from Varia like their AccuPro Pro. Very versatile with advanced modes for both espresso and pour over. Perfect if you use both of those brew methods. If doing espresso, I really like using a dosing funnel for your portafilter like this one. If you grind in the cup, it makes loading your portafilter easier, or you can grind right into a portafilter with a wide mouth dosing funnel. So who's the E6C Chameleon for? Well, do you do multiple brew methods using specialty grade coffees? Is flavor your thing? Do you want a pure dose every time with no coffee waste? Look, this is a commercial grade grinder. It comes stock with the Opalglide X64 Burrs. They're all-purpose and designed by Ceado to focus on flavor, producing a slightly higher percentage of fines at espresso sizes for sweeter cups with more body. At filter sizes, fines are going to be reduced for clean cups with clarity of flavor that's so important when brewing higher-end specialty coffees. There are grinders which look similar to the Chameleon, but when you look close, they do not have near the same build quality. The burrs will be stock. Now, of course, you can upgrade, but even with the upgrade, is it a burr that has exceptional performance at both espresso and filter sizes? Now, if you have any questions about the Chameleon here or anything coffee or espresso related, go ahead and drop those down in the comments and I'll be sure to get you a detailed answer. And if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications. We're putting out a lot of great content you won't want to miss out on. Once again, I'm Mark. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you back here soon for more of the best on everything coffee, brought to you by Whole Latte Love.